The coffee shop was buzzing that morning, the kind of busy where the air hums with clinking mugs and hurried footsteps. Ellen Carter, 32, stood behind the counter, her hands moving fast steaming milk, pulling espresso shots, scribbling names on cups. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her apron was already streaked with coffee stains. She'd been at Bean for 6 years, long enough to know every regular's order by heart, long enough to smile through the chaos. But today, her smile felt like it was holding up a crumbling wall. Ellen's boss, Mr. Hargrove, was in one of his moods. You could always tell. His voice got sharper, his eyes narrower, like he was looking for something to pounce on. Ellen had seen it before too many times. She tried to keep her head down, focus on the orders. Caramel latte, extra foam, she muttered to herself, double-checking the cup in her hand. But the line was long, and the pressure was building, like a kettle about to whistle. "Ellen!" Hargrove's voice cut through the noise like a knife. She flinched, nearly spilling the latte. "You're moving like molasses today. Get it together, or you're out the door." The words landed hard. The shop went quiet for a split second, customers glancing over, then quickly looking away. Ellen's face burned. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Yes, sir," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned back to the espresso machine, her hands shaking just enough to make her fumble the next order. She wasn't new to this. Hargrove had a temper, and Ellen was often the target. She didn't know why. Maybe because she was quiet. Maybe because she didn't push back. 6 years of showing up early, staying late, memorizing orders and cleaning spills, and still it was never enough. She'd tried to talk to him once to ask why he always seemed to single her out. He'd laughed it off, said she was too sensitive, so she stopped trying. She needed the job, her apartment wasn't cheap, and her mom's medical bills weren't getting any smaller. But that morning, it stung worse than usual. Maybe it was the sleepless night she'd had, worrying about her mom's latest doctor's appointment. Maybe it was the way Hargrove's words echoed in her head, louder than the chatter around her. "Get it together, or you're out the door." She felt small, like she was shrinking right there behind the counter. Across the shop, in a corner booth, an old man sat quietly, sipping his black coffee. His name was Henry Walsh, 78, a widower who came to brew Bean every morning. He liked the routine same booth, same coffee, same newspaper he pretended to read while watching the world go by. Henry had a way of noticing things others didn't. The way Ellen's smile flickered when she thought no one was looking. The way her shoulders tensed when Hargrove raised his voice. Henry had seen a lot in his years. He'd worked as a school janitor for 4 decades, raised 2 daughters, and buried his wife, Clara, 3 years ago. Life had taught him that kindness was like a seed. You plant it, and it grows, even if you don't see the sprout right away. He didn't know Ellen's story, not really, but he knew pain when he saw it. And he saw it in her eyes today. Ellen kept working, her hands steadier now, but her chest felt tight. She handed a customer their coffee, managed a quick, "Have a nice day," and moved to the next order. But inside, she was unraveling. "Why does it always feel like I'm failing?" she thought. She'd always been the dependable, dependable daughter, dependable employee. But lately, it felt like no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get it right. The lunch rush came and went, and Ellen finally got a moment to breathe. She leaned against the counter, wiping her hands on her apron, when Hargrove stormed out of the back office. "Ellen, the register's short by $10. You mess up the change again?" Her heart sank. "I don't think so," she stammered, checking the receipts in her mind. "I've been careful." "Careful?" he snapped, loud enough for the few customers left to hear. "You call this careful? Fix it, or it's coming out of your pay." Ellen's eyes stung, but she wouldn't cry. Not here, not in front of him. She nodded, her voice gone, and turned to recount the cash drawer. Her hands trembled as she counted the bills, her mind racing. $10, how could I mess that up? She hadn't. She knew she hadn't. But arguing with Hargrove was like arguing with a brick wall. Henry watched from his booth, his coffee long gone cold. He saw the way Ellen's shoulders slumped, the way she bit her lip to keep it together. He'd seen that look before on his daughter, Sarah, when her first boss treated her like she was nothing. It made his chest ache like an old wound flaring up. He folded his newspaper, stood slowly, and walked to the counter. "Excuse me, miss," Henry said, his voice gentle but clear. Ellen looked up, startled, her eyes meeting his. They were kind eyes, crinkled at the corners, the kind that had seen a lot of life, but still held warmth. "Yes, sir," she said, forcing a small smile. "Need a refill?" No, Henry said, waving a hand. I saw what happened with your boss, and I wanted to say, you're doing a fine job. Don't let him make you think otherwise." Ellen blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, thank you," she said, her voice soft, unsure. She wasn't used to this someone noticing, someone caring enough to say something. "It's just one of those days, you know?" Henry nodded. "I know those days, had plenty myself, but you keep going, and that's what matters. You're stronger than you think." His words were simple, but they hit her like a warm breeze after a long winter. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, her throat tight. Henry tipped his head, gave her a small smile, and shuffled back to his booth. The rest of the shift dragged on, but Ellen felt a little lighter. Not much, but enough to keep her going. When the shop finally quieted down, she clocked out, grabbed her coat, and stepped outside into the crisp fall air. She was halfway down the street when she heard someone call her name. "Ellen?" It was Henry, standing by the shop's entrance, his scarf wrapped loosely around his neck. "Got a minute?" She hesitated, then walked back. "Sure. Everything okay?" Henry reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "This is for you," he said, holding it out. "Just a little something. Don't open it now. Wait till you're home." Ellen frowned, confused. What is it?" "Just take it," he said with a chuckle. "You'll see." She took the envelope, her fingers brushing the worn paper. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't know why, but her eyes were stinging again. Henry tipped his hat on, old-fashioned gesture that made her smile. "You take care, Ellen, and don't let anyone dim your light." She watched him walk away, his steps slow but steady, until he disappeared around the corner. The envelope felt heavy in her hand, though it couldn't have weighed much. She tucked it into her bag and headed home, her mind buzzing with questions. That night, in her small apartment, Ellen sat on her couch, the envelope in her lap. Her mom was asleep in the next room, the TV still humming softly. Ellen opened the envelope carefully, like it might break. Inside was a handwritten note and a crisp $50 bill. The note read, "Ellen, I've watched you work hard every day, always with a smile, even when it's tough. You remind me of my Clara Strong, kind and tougher than she ever knew. That $10 your boss was on about? I saw the customer who shorted you. It wasn't your fault. Use this for something that makes you smile. You deserve it. Henry?" Ellen's breath caught. She read the note again, her eyes blurring with tears. $50 wasn't a fortune, but it was more than the money. It was the fact that someone saw her. really saw her. Not just the barista, not just the girl who messed up, but her. She thought about Henry, about his kind eyes and quiet words. Have you ever felt invisible even in a crowded room? She had, so many times. But today, for the first time in a long while, she didn't. The next morning, Ellen was back at brew, bean, her apron tied on, her hands moving through the familiar rhythm of coffee making. Hargrove was there, grumbling as usual, but his words didn't sting as much. She kept Henry's note in her pocket, a small reminder that she wasn't alone. During a lull, she slipped into the back and pulled out her phone. She typed a quick message to her mom. "Got a little extra this month. Let's get you that new scarf you liked." She smiled, imagining her mom's face when she saw it. As the days went on, Ellen started noticing the little things, the way a customer thanked her for remembering their order, the way the morning light hit the shop's windows just right. She started talking to Henry more, learning about his life, his daughters, his Clara. He became her favorite regular, and she made sure his coffee was always hot, just the way he liked it. One day, she worked up the courage to talk to Hargrove, not to fight, not to yell, but to calmly tell him she deserved better. To her surprise, he listened. Not a lot, but enough to make her feel heard. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the kind story where kindness lives on. Ellen never forgot Henry's note, or the way it made her feel seen. It was a small act, a simple gesture, but it changed everything. It reminded her that kindness could come from anywhere, even a stranger in a corner booth. And maybe, just maybe, she could pass that kindness on too. This story was originally written for The Kind Story YouTube channel. It is a unique and creative work, not copied from any other source.